Welcome to the Deep Dive. You guys sent in a really interesting mix of articles and notes about AI.
Yeah.
Specifically, how these new chatbots, like ChatGPT, could actually help us become better critical thinkers.
Yeah.
I'm already hooked. Let's get right to it.
Definitely a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
Lots of talk about AI replacing jobs, even replacing our brains entirely.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But what we're diving into today is a different perspective.
Okay.
How can we use these tools to sharpen our own thinking?
So less robots taking over and more robots as study buddies.
Exactly. We're going to be looking at both the potential benefits and the pitfalls.
Okay.
And even explore some really creative ways you can use these AI-powered conversational tools to challenge your own assumptions.
Yeah.
Analyze information more effectively.
Already.
Great.
The article that really caught my eye is Chatbots as Critical Thinking Partners by David Gertin. He makes a strong case for why we shouldn't fear AI, but instead see it as an opportunity.
What's fascinating about Gertin's approach is that he sees AI as a potential catalyst for deeper understanding. He compares it to having a thinking assistant, almost like a super smart sparring partner who can challenge and extend our intellectual capabilities.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So it's not about letting the AI think for you, but rather using it as a tool to refine your own thinking.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
To give you a concrete example, imagine you're trying to understand a complex issue like climate change.
Okay.
Gertin suggests you could use a chatbot to simulate a debate. You could literally have it present arguments for and against different policies, helping you see the issue from multiple angles.
Ooh, that's interesting. Almost like an AI-powered devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I also noticed that he outlines a 4-step exercise for rethinking your own beliefs.
This exercise is a really powerful technique.
Okay.
It starts with you identifying a belief you hold strongly for maybe something about politics, religion, or even something personal. Then you use the chatbot to uncover hidden assumptions you might have about that belief.
That's fascinating. It's like shining a light on the underlying framework of your beliefs.
Yeah.
The things you might not even realize are influencing your thinking.
Right.
What happens next?
Here's where it gets really challenging. You take each of those assumptions and ask yourself, what if I'm wrong?
Okay.
You can use the chatbot to explore alternative viewpoints and imagine scenarios where your assumption doesn't hold true.
Wow. That would definitely force you to confront your own biases and think more critically about your position. But honestly, it sounds a little uncomfortable too.
It can be.
Yeah.
But that discomfort can actually be a sign of real intellectual growth.
Okay.
The final step is to decide, do you confirm your original belief based on this new understanding, or do you revise it based on the flaws in your reasoning that the chatbot helped you uncover?
So it's really all about using these tools to guide your own critical thinking process. You're not just blindly accepting what the chatbot says. You're digging deeper into your own beliefs and using the AI as a sounding board.
Precisely.
Got it.
And it's not limited to just one belief. You can repeat this process with other beliefs.
Yeah.
You might even find that some of your beliefs are stronger than you thought, while others might need some adjusting.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how this could be a really valuable exercise for anyone who wants to become a more critical thinker. And it's not just about rethinking your beliefs.
Right.
Gertin also provides a whole list of practical techniques for using chatbots to boost critical thinking in everyday life.
He really does.
Okay, like?
For example, let's say you're researching a news story.
Okay.
You could ask the chatbot to analyze the credibility of a specific website or author. It could even cross-reference their claims with reputable sources.
So it's like having a fact-checking assistant right at your fingertips.
Yeah.
That could be super helpful for navigating all the information overload we're bombarded with these days.
Definitely.
What other techniques does he suggest?
He talks about using chatbots to explore missing information.
Okay.
That might be relevant to your analysis.
Okay.
Let's say you're writing a report on a historical event.
Okay.
You could ask the chatbot to identify potential gaps in your research and suggest additional sources to explore.
It's almost like having a research assistant who can help you uncover those hidden pieces of the puzzle. This is all sounding incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
But I also remember Gertin cautioning against relying too heavily on these tools.
He does make that point very clearly, and it's important to remember.
Okay.
These tools are meant to supplement human critical thinking, not replace it.
Okay.
We always need to be aware of their limitations.
So we're not quite ready to hand over the reins to the robots just yet.
Not quite.
Okay.
But it is crucial to understand that chatbots, as they exist now, are really good at processing and synthesizing information that's already out there.
Okay.
But true comprehension and reasoning, the way humans do it, is still something they're learning.
That makes sense. It's kind of like using a calculator for math.
Yeah.
It can help you do the calculations faster. But if you don't understand the underlying concepts, you're going to run into trouble eventually.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And the same goes for chatbots and critical thinking. We can't just passively consume the information they provide.
Okay.
We need to actively engage with it, question it,
Right.
and ultimately use our own judgment to make sense of it.
So what stands out to you from what we've discussed so far? What's got you most intrigued?
Honestly, one of the things that I find most fascinating is the potential for using chatbots to help us become more aware of our own biases.
Okay.
We all have biases, whether we realize it or not,
Yeah,
and those biases can definitely cloud our judgment.
that's a great point. And you know what? I'm actually a bit wary of becoming too reliant on these tools. I mean, it all sounds amazing,
Sure.
but I don't want to lose my own critical thinking skills in the process.
That's a really valid concern.
Okay.
And it's something we should definitely dive deeper into.
Yeah.
There are definitely potential downsides to using chatbots for critical thinking.
Okay.
And it's important to be aware of those as well.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's unpack some of those potential risks in part 2.
Sounds good. You're right to be cautious. It's like anything else, even something potentially beneficial can have drawbacks if we're not careful.
Okay, good. So I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Mm.
What are some of the potential downsides we should be aware of when it comes to using chatbots for critical thinking?
Well, one of the biggest risks is the potential for over-reliance. It's tempting to think of these chatbots as all-knowing oracles, but they're not. They're tools, and like any tool, they can be misused.
That makes sense. It's like relying too heavily on spell check when writing. It might catch some typos, but it won't make you a better writer overall. You still need to know the rules of grammar and have a good grasp of language.
Exactly. And in the same way, if we become too dependent on chatbots to do our critical thinking for us, we risk losing those essential skills we need to stay actively engaged in the process, questioning the information presented and forming our own judgments.
So it's not just about becoming lazy thinkers. It's about potentially losing those core critical thinking abilities altogether.
Precisely. And another potential downside is the risk of falling into what we call echo chambers. Have you ever noticed how some social media algorithms tend to show you content that aligns with your existing views?
Oh, absolutely. It's like they're creating these filter bubbles where you're only exposed to information that confirms what you already think.
Exactly. And while that might feel comfortable in the short term, it can actually be detrimental to our critical thinking in the long run. We need to be exposed to different perspectives and challenging viewpoints in order to grow intellectually and make informed decisions.
So how do chatbots play into this? I mean, are they supposed to help us see things from different angles?
They can, but we have to be intentional about how we use them. If we're only using chatbots to confirm what we already believe or to find sources that align with our existing views, then we're not really challenging ourselves. We're just reinforcing our own biases.
Okay, I'm starting to see the danger here. It's almost like creating an echo chamber within our own minds.
Exactly. And that can lead to a kind of intellectual stagnation where we become less open to new ideas and less willing to consider different perspectives.
So how do we avoid that? How do we make sure we're using chatbots in a way that actually expands our thinking rather than narrowing it?
One strategy is to actively seek out diverse perspectives. Instead of just asking a chatbot to summarize an article you already agree with, try asking it to present you with opposing viewpoints.
So it's like deliberately using the chatbot as a devil's advocate to challenge your own assumptions.
Exactly. And another tactic is to use chatbots to explore sources you wouldn't normally encounter. Maybe you could ask it to suggest articles from publications that represent different political viewpoints or cultural perspectives.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's like using the chatbot as a guide to help us navigate beyond our usual information bubbles and discover new ways of thinking.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You're the captain of your own critical thinking journey. The chatbot is a powerful tool, but you're the one steering the ship.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of being mindful of over-reliance and echo chambers. Are there any other potential pitfalls we should be watching out for?
Well, it's important to remember that these AI systems are still under development and they're not perfect. They can make mistakes, they can be biased, and they can sometimes generate information that's inaccurate or misleading.
Oh, Rob, we touched on this earlier. They're good at processing information that's already out there, but they don't always understand it the way humans do.
Exactly. And this is where our own critical thinking skills become even more important. Well, we can't just blindly accept everything a chatbot tells us. We need to be able to evaluate the information it provides, identify potential biases, and be willing to double-check its work.
So it's like, with any source of information, we need to be critical consumers. We can't just turn off our brains and let the AI do the thinking for us.
Exactly. Think of it like this. The chatbot can give you a map, but it's up to you to navigate the terrain. You're the one who needs to assess the risks, make decisions, and ultimately be responsible for where you end up.
Okay, I'm really starting to appreciate the nuances here. We need to strike a balance between leveraging the power of these tools and maintaining our own critical thinking abilities.
You've hit the nail on the head, and as these AI systems continue to evolve, that balance is going to become even more crucial. We're going to need to be more discerning than ever about the information we consume and the sources we trust.
So we've covered some of the potential downsides of using chatbots for critical thinking, but despite these challenges, I still think there's a lot of potential here, right? I mean, we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Absolutely, and I think it's important to remember that technology itself isn't inherently good or bad. It's all about how we choose to use it.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about some practical tips for how to use chatbots effectively to enhance our critical thinking skills. Where do we even start?
Well, I think the first step is to simply start experimenting. There are a lot of different chatbots available now, many of them free to use. Try them out, see what they can do, get a feel for how they work.
So don't be intimidated, just dive in and start playing around.
Exactly. And as you're experimenting, think about how you can use them to challenge your own thinking and push yourself beyond your comfort zone.
I like that. So instead of just asking a chatbot to confirm what you already think, try asking it to present you with opposing viewpoints or to help you identify potential weaknesses in your own argument.
Right, and don't be afraid to ask questions you don't know the answers to. Chatbots can be great resources for learning new things and expanding your knowledge base.
Okay, so curiosity is key. What else?
Another important tip is to be aware of the limitations of chatbots. Remember that they're still under development and they can make mistakes. Always double-check their work, especially if you're dealing with important information or making decisions based on their output.
Right. Like we discussed earlier, don't treat them like infallible sources of truth.
Exactly. You wouldn't blindly trust everything you read on the internet, would you? The same principle applies to chatbots.
Okay, that makes sense. What other advice do you have for people who are new to using chatbots for critical thinking?
Well, I think it's helpful to think about chatbots as a supplement to your own critical thinking skills, not as a replacement for them. Use them to help you gather information, explore different perspectives, and challenge your own assumptions, but don't let them do all the thinking for you.
Okay, so don't outsource your critical thinking entirely. Stay engaged in the process.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to be mindful of the fact that these are powerful tools that can be used for good or for bad. We need to think about the potential consequences of our actions and use these tools responsibly.
That's a great point. It's not just about our own personal use. It's about thinking about the wider impact these tools can have on society.
Precisely. And I think that's where critical thinking comes in. If we can develop our own critical thinking skills and use them to guide our interactions with AI, then I think we can create a future where AI is used to enhance human intelligence and to solve some of the world's most pressing problems.
I love that vision.
Yeah.
It's not about AI versus humans. It's about AI and humans working together to create a better future. And I think chatbots have a really important role to play in that. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's bring it back to Gerteen's article. I remember one point he made that I wanted to highlight about using chatbots to generate new ideas.
Oh, that's an excellent point. It's so easy to get caught up in the analytical side of critical thinking, but creativity is just as important.
Exactly. He argues that these tools aren't just for analyzing information. They can also be powerful catalysts for brainstorming and exploring new possibilities.
Yes, imagine asking a chatbot to help you come up with a new business idea or to generate different concepts for a design project.
Or even to help write a poem or compose a piece of music. The possibilities are truly endless when you start thinking about it that way.
Exactly, and I think that's what makes this whole conversation so exciting. Chatbots aren't just tools for thinking, they're tools for creating.
It's like having a brainstorming partner who can help you generate ideas you might never have thought of on your own.
And that brings us to a crucial point for you, our listener. What's one thing you could do today to start incorporating chatbots into your own critical thinking and creative process?
That's a great question. I'm eager to hear your suggestion. That's a great question. I'm ready for that challenge. What's a good first step our listener can take?
I think a great starting point would be to take that 4-step exercise we discussed earlier
Okay.
and put it into action.
You mean the one where you identify a strongly held belief
Right.
and use the chatbot to uncover hidden assumptions?
Exactly. Pick a belief, even a seemingly simple one, and spend some time interacting with a chatbot. Ask it to help you uncover the hidden assumptions behind that belief
Okay.
and explore alternative viewpoints.
I can see how that would be a really practical way to start flexing those critical thinking muscles with the help of AI.
Yeah, it might feel a bit uncomfortable at first
Yeah.
to really question something you believe in, but I guarantee it will be a rewarding exercise in self-reflection and critical thinking. And who knows, you might even discover some surprising insights about yourself along the way.
That's a great call to action for our listeners, and it really highlights what we've been talking about this whole time, using these AI tools as partners in our critical thinking journey.
Precisely, we've explored both the potential benefits and the potential pitfalls of using chatbots for critical thinking. But ultimately, the power lies with us. It's up to us to use these tools thoughtfully and responsibly.
We've talked about how they can help us challenge our assumptions, explore different perspectives,
Right.
and even spark our creativity. But we've also emphasized the importance of avoiding over-reliance,
Yeah.
staying aware of our own biases, and always double-checking the information these tools provide.
It's like we said earlier, the chatbot can give you a map, but you're the one who has to navigate the terrain.
I love that analogy. It really sums up the key takeaway here. So to our listener out there, as you navigate this increasingly complex world, remember to embrace the tools at your disposal, but never relinquish the reins of your own critical thinking.
And if you find yourself wrestling with a tough problem or just curious to explore a new topic, you know where to find us. Send us your material. We're always ready for another deep dive.
Until next time, keep those minds sharp and keep diving deep.